What's up, YouTube? This is Design Jedi, and I found this article through a service I get. My day job is web development and design, and I thought I would do something different today and kind of talk about what it's like to be a web developer and a designer in a world that is constantly changing with the advent of digital builders and websites that provide graphic design templates. Places like Wix and Squarespace that are drag and drop builders for people that are novices or that don't know anything about web development. And I myself am a WordPress aficionado. I've been using WordPress now for going on 8 years. It is my go-to CMS, especially for clients. And it's, to me, there's a learning curve, but once you get there, it's pretty easy. And so I found this article from Medium talking about how WordPress is at a crossroads, and I thought it was a really interesting read. It goes on to talk about how this guy's life was centered around WordPress because it was free and because they had themes, and he decided to start a business about plagiarism in 2005, and it's still going today on WordPress as a platform. So to me, WordPress is kind of needed. I'm sad to see that even though it controls 30% of the internet, that's what it says. Currently, WordPress powers some 30% of all sites on the internet, including at least a dozen of this guy's sites, and it sits at the center of the potential $1 billion economy. The internet is huge. I mean, like, you think about where it was when I was young. You're talking AOL young. That's how far back my experience with the internet goes. I can still remember Hotline, and if anybody knows what that is, that reference, my hat goes off to you, because that was my first foray into digital piracy. It was a service you could get for free, and you could go on other people's servers and they could trade stuff, and it was pretty cool. I enjoyed it. I thought it was really neat. And then for a long time, AOL was, you can get in chat rooms and get wares and all sorts of other stuff, but they shut that down, and AOL became obsolete. And I'm hoping that WordPress doesn't do the same. So this guy says, WordPress is at a crossroads. I've been a WordPress user for nearly 14 years. I've watched it has grown from a plucky little blogging platform struggling to compete with movable type to becoming a dominant content management system, CMS, on the internet. WordPress is my life. It is where I do most of my writing, the platform that runs my business, and I owe much of my success to it, and I'm not alone. Currently, WordPress powers some 30% of all sites on the internet, including at least a dozen of this guy's, and it sits at the center of a potential $1 billion economy. However, in 2018, WordPress finds itself at a crossroads, the little platform that could now face a new threat, and it's not a competitor, but rather an ideology. WordPress is fighting for the soul of the internet and is slowly losing. If WordPress is to ensure the next decade is successful as the previous, it needs to make some drastic changes, but its own success may make those changes impossible. I like the way that this article is written. I like that he takes the time to talk about, in this next section, about how he was broke. He was a lark. I was broke, currently between steady employment, and I didn't want to invest much time into it, lest I find that it failed. But then I'd been dabbling with WordPress for a while and decided it was the perfect platform, easy to set up, free themes, and all the tools I needed. It was the perfect platform for starting what should have been a doomed project. But that project wasn't doomed. 13 years later, it is still going strong. In fact, just a few years after launch, it became my full-time job and has been primary source of income for the past decade. Did I launch the second YouTube and collect $1 billion payday? No. But I made a business and a site I'm proud of, and that has kept a roof over my head for years. Still in 2005, WordPress was the perfect choice for creating such a site. The setup was easy, especially if you already had a server and everything was free, both in terms of beer and freedom. I risked nothing by getting started, but this raised a question. Is WordPress still the best choice for such larks in 2018? The answer, unfortunately, is no. It hasn't been for some time. Have an idea for a blog but don't have a site? Medium or Tumblr are much easier platforms to start with, and both come with a built-in audience. Need a business site? Wix or Squarespace can get you started much easier than WordPress and won't cost you much more than a regular hosting account. WordPress developers will roll their eyes at these sites and bemoan the lack of control or customization. However, for people just starting out, that level of control simply raises the difficulty curve. If all you've ever done is post on Facebook and Twitter, the leap between social media and self-hosted WordPress is huge, and there are many viable alternatives in that gap. And that's so true. I've been watching trends in my profession very closely because, ironically, graphic design and digital design in general is evolving so quickly. You have these websites that people can get on and they can make a logo in 30 minutes. And who's going to pay somebody $500 to develop them a custom logo when they can just go on a website, pay $14.95 for that month, and get themselves their own logo? It might look like every other logo out there on the world, but they don't care. They just care that it costs them $15. Same thing goes for Fiverr. Fiverr has been the bane of my existence for a while now. I'm lucky and have been fortunate enough to be talented enough to still have people and clients that believe in my work and that want to work with me, despite alternatives. And I also do a lot of creative consulting on top of that, talking to businesses about their branding and what they need to do with it and that kind of thing, and making sure that everything is integrated and runs smoothly. All right, let's get back to this. To be fair, WordPress is one of the alternatives and it's a good size. However, its cachet has never been as large as Tumblr's, and many members of the WordPress community actively speak ill of it, calling it a limited platform that isn't for serious users. None of this might not seem like a problem for WordPress. After all, it is a nice niche carved out for itself. But that happens when a platform stops attracting new and novice users. The platform starts to slowly melt. One of the themes of WordPress in 2018 is that it's a victim of its own success. When I first started back in 2004 and 2005, there was no real WordPress economy. There were no paid themes, plugins, etc., and only a handful of people working as WordPress developers. Most of those, truth be told, were working for Automatic. However, in 2018, such plugins and themes are everywhere. While there are still great themes and plugins to be found for free, one has to actively look for them. Compare that with freemium plugins and themes, including ones that appear in the official repositories. You can expect that getting the site you want is going to cost at least some money. This, to be clear, is not a bad thing. Talented people deserve to get paid for their work. I've paid for the themes I use on my two main sites, and I've paid for at least 4 or 5 plugins. I have no issue with that. However, me in 2005 certainly would have. If I'm launching a website as a lark and using a platform that emphasizes customization, why would I agree to spend hundreds of dollars getting it the way I want? I could take the same money and set up a Squarespace account. This is what most people think and when it comes to design and web development. That way I would not only get all the tools and customization I needed, but your site would look like everybody else, including access to their theme library, again, every other site on the internet. But I would not be responsible for securing and maintaining my own CMS, and you wouldn't actually own your site. Squarespace and Wix actually own your site, and so you can never take it off of that platform. That's the catch they get you with. Once I start on Squarespace, why would I leave? What would be the pain and point that would make me go through the trouble and expense of moving to WordPress? If Squarespace was adequate when I started, there probably wouldn't be one. Simply put, if you're not a professional developer like I am, once you learn a platform, you tend to stick with it, much as I've done with WordPress. Amen to that. and people are increasingly not starting out with WordPress. Enter Gutenberg. Gutenberg is WordPress's answer to Tumblr and in a small parts Squarespace and Wix. It's apparently, I've not worked with it yet. It's brand new. It's a visual editor meant to emulate how Medium, Tumblr, and similar services work. And supposedly it's supposed to be very easy to use, but since I'm a developer, I can make my own theme. I don't really need that. And I use another builder called Oxygen. That's really great. I really enjoy that platform. And so if you're a web developer struggling with things like Visual Bakery or anything like that, I suggest you check it out. Okay, enter Gutenberg. Let's get back to this. It's not the only one realizing these problems. Automatic and the developers of WordPress core have realized it too. This is why in June 2017, WordPress announced that it was working on a new primary editor for the platform. Entitled Gutenberg, it's a visual editor meant to emulate how Medium, Tumblr, and other similar services work. The goal was to eliminate a major pain point for new users. Though the current visual editor in WordPress eliminates the need to write any code, it still requires some design know-how to make posts look attractive. Gutenberg, however, aimed to make it possible to do more complicated posts with attractive and easy-to-read layouts. However, the reception has not been great. As with writing, the plugin has 2.5 stars in the official repository with some 563 one-star votes and 239 five-star votes. The main concern has been with how the new editor breaks established sites. Yes. While WordPress developers have promised a plugin to let users maintain their current editor if they choose, many sites don't wish to or can't run plugins. This is a serious issue for WordPress. It's become so crucial to the core infrastructure of the internet that even the smallest change can wreak havoc. A major one, such as changing the default editor, may not be practical at all. However, this change is an important one for the longevity of WordPress. Though Gutenberg won't win over Tumblr or Medium users, creating variety in this area may help convince some new developers to put their faith in the old steward. WordPress has to do something to compete, but anything they do risks alienating their current audience, putting their future at odds with their present. A changing internet. To be clear, none of this is WordPress's fault. The internet has changed immeasurably since 2004. Where once we championed an open internet where everyone could build a homestead, now we're comfortable with putting out content in closed silos. Facebook and YouTube and Twitter may not compete directly with WordPress, but may represent a different ideology, and it's an ideology war that WordPress is losing. Simply put, a self-hosted WordPress experience can't provide an easier and cheaper alternative to the walled gardens of Medium, Tumblr, Shopify, etc. Those who are getting their start today are likely going to take a different path. One of my jobs is doing copyright work is filing copyright notices against sites that copy marketing materials from my clients. These are normally new companies that didn't know better than when they were setting up their site. 5 years ago, these sites were mostly self-hosted WordPress affairs, usually on GoDaddy, Bluehost, HostGator, and today the majority are on Wix, Weebly, or on a similar platform. While I'm sure the WordPress community won't lose sleep over the fact plagiarists no longer favor their service, the problem is that many legitimate upstarts don't either. That is the challenge for WordPress is facing, and the challenge it may tear itself apart because of. Bottom line, many of you might have noticed that I published this on Medium. It is not an article appropriate for any other existing WordPress sites, and an alternative publishing here was to literally go through the headache of setting up a whole new website, including obtaining a domain. The purpose of publishing this on Medium wasn't to get an extra dig in. It was the choice out of expediency. In fact, I hope none of this is an offense to WordPress users or developers. I love WordPress and want it to succeed. I simply observe some intractable challenges on the horizon. When I finish this, and I'll go back to writing on WordPress sites just as I always do. However, I worry that it might not be the normal for those learning to build websites now. If someone came to me and asked what platform they should use for their new site, there's only a couple of situations where WordPress would be my first choice. That's not the way it was 14 years ago. WordPress may have grown, but its niche when it comes to new developers has definitely gotten a good deal smaller. Wow, Jonathan Bailey says it better than anybody could. I am blown away by reading this because I work with WordPress every day, and it's sad to me to see that going away, and that even him, who uses WordPress every day, decided to post this on Medium, because it was easier. And that says a lot for platforms or websites that work with WordPress and developers that work with WordPress exclusively. Anyway, I can bemoan the changing trends of my profession all day long, or I can adjust, evolve. That's what good designers do, evolve with the changing times. WordPress might be at a crossroads, but right now, the way I feel about it is until there is a better alternative to building sites from scratch and customizing those sites to be what clients want, I'm going to stick with WordPress. And that's my opinion. I'd be happy for someone that understands or follows design trends to weigh in on this in the comments. This is not my normal type of article that I cover, but it was important to me, and so I wanted to get it out there. Let me know what you guys think in the comments, and as always, have a good day.